You won't believe what's happening right now in women's basketball. Unrivaled, the so-called upstart 3-on-3 league, is now publicly begging the WNBA for help, while its own star, Napheesa Collier, keeps taking blunt shots at Cathy Engelbert and the league's leadership. It's chaos, it's drama, and it's exactly the kind of story you can't turn away from. Welcome back to Her Hoops, where we break down the hard truths the mainstream sports media won't touch. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell, because today things get wild.
Unrivaled is in major trouble, as now it seems they are begging the WNBA to partner with them.
I don't think this is going to affect the CBA negotiations, because I don't know how much power Napheesa Collier has in CBA negotiations, but she's completely delusional. Like, she is completely delusional.
So it's comments like Napheesa Collier made on the Unrivaled broadcast that get me a little worried about the WNBA and the CBA and the state of the negotiations. Now, she had said earlier that she thinks they're going to get a deal done, and she's optimistic. So
here's the setup. Unrivaled is struggling big time. Ratings are underwhelming, ticket sales are flat, and investors are getting nervous. And now, in a move that might shock you, their president, Alex Bazell, openly admitted the league is ready to collaborate with the WNBA. That's right, after trying to position Unrivaled as a rival, they're now looking to the very league they once tried to compete with as a lifeline. Meanwhile, Napheesa Collier isn't holding back. On camera,
but at the same time, Napheesa Collier is still getting on camera, taking shots at Cathy Engelbert, talking about the WNBA needs to get somebody in leadership that knows how to value the players. And yeah, because now that I'm doing this with Unrivaled, I see what it's look like, and if they can't get it done, like, wait a minute, y'all looking for partnership and you still talking crazy? This is wild, man. We got to get into this, man. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, and hype the video. First off, let's get into what Napheesa Collier had to say on camera. She's still taking shots on camera.
She's calling out the WNBA leadership for not valuing players properly. She's saying what many inside the league are thinking, but won't voice publicly. If the league can't find a model that sustainably supports the players, it needs new people in charge. And she's not sugarcoating it. Collier is standing firm, asserting that the players will not take less than what they're owed. So here's the tension. On one hand, you have a fledgling league scrambling to survive, now willing to partner with the WNBA.
I should be able to, therefore, if X TV network is failing, I mean, I know, from my side, I can run a successful media business. So therefore, I mean, scale it 150x, and then it's going to be the same thing. No, it's not. Like, you don't take into account the fact that there is one Unrivaled team. There's going to be 18 WNBA teams in the next couple of years. So instead of one facility that they need.
On the other, you have a top WNBA star calling out the current leadership's failures and pushing for a more sustainable model. It's colliding narratives: investor money versus player empowerment, ambition versus reality, and the clock is ticking. The WNBA's January 9th CBA deadline is approaching, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Stay tuned, because in this video, Her Hoops will break down every angle: why Unrivaled's model might be unsustainable, why Collier's statements are both bold and controversial, and what all of this means for the WNBA.
Everybody. And that's with the worst deal on the table. Now, that doesn't mean you just accept it blindly, of course, because the revenue share is important, especially as the revenue grows. So it really shouldn't boil down to anything more than agreeing on that percentage number. That should be the whole deal. For both, whatever that number is, and it can't be fixed.
It's players and the future of women's professional basketball. To fully understand why this Unrivaled WNBA drama is so explosive, you need the backstory. Unrivaled launched with fanfare, branding itself as a 3-on-3 league that could rival the WNBA's off-season appeal. On paper, it sounded innovative, a domestic league where players could stay in the US, avoid overseas grind, and keep playing year-round. But here's the reality: the novelty is fading fast. Year 2 kicked off with 2 matinee games and an evening slate.
And here's a quote: I don't want to speak too much. Here it says, I don't want to speak too much on what's going on behind the scenes. But as I've made it very clear, we're open to grow the ecosystem. Unrivaled president Alex Bazell said Monday. Whichever way that looks like, for us, there's nothing on the table or off the table. So he's basically saying, look, we are willing to work with the WNBA. Listen, I don't really know how long this 3-on-3 thing gonna last.
And already cracks are showing. Tickets aren't selling, TV ratings are underwhelming, and investors are starting to ask the tough questions about long-term viability. Meanwhile, the WNBA has been the cornerstone of women's professional basketball for over 30 years. Built on steady growth, marquee stars, and a global audience, it's the standard by which every new league is judged. The players, many of whom Unrivaled is trying to poach, still see the WNBA as the gold standard, not just financially, but in terms of legitimacy and exposure. And that's where the tension gets messy. Napheesa Collier's role here can't be overstated. She's not just a star player, she's also a key voice in the WNBA's CBA negotiations, advocating for salaries that reflect the growth and potential of the league. Her statements on Unrivaled broadcasts are sharp, unapologetic, and incredibly pointed. Collier is essentially saying, "We see what it takes to run a sustainable business, and if the current leadership can't do it, someone needs to step up." In other words, she's holding up a mirror to the league, and it's uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Unrivaled's leadership is caught in a bind. President Alex Bazell has admitted the league approached the WNBA early about a partnership and was rebuffed. Now, with investor pressure mounting and the spotlight on ratings, Unrivaled is publicly opening the door for collaboration, even as it faces skepticism from the very players it aims to attract. They're in a strange position, trying to act like an independent rival while quietly hoping for a safety net. This is where things get dramatic. The players know the league's limits, and the fans are starting to notice. Viewership numbers for marquee matchups are modest at best, with VIP tickets going unsold and empty seats in premium sections. And while Unrivaled can claim it's creating opportunities, the cold truth is that without WNBA stars and structural support, the league may struggle to survive beyond a few seasons. This isn't just a story about numbers. It's a clash of ambition, ego, and reality, and it's unfolding in real time. Let's break this down, because the situation with Unrivaled and the WNBA isn't just dramatic, it's a textbook case of overreach meets reality. Step 1. Unrivaled's financial model. This league is running almost entirely on investor money, with a fraction of the revenue streams a WNBA team has. While Napheesa Collier claims she knows what it takes to run a sustainable business, let's be real. Unrivaled doesn't even come close to operating at the scale of the WNBA. One facility, a few teams, 800 seats. Compare that to 12 to 18 teams in full arenas, national TV contracts, and decades of infrastructure. The scale is different. The overhead is different. The operational costs are astronomically higher in the WNBA. Step 2. Player leverage. Unrivaled markets itself as a player-first league, promising higher salaries than some overseas options and keeping players stateside. That's attractive, but it comes with limits. Players like Angel Reese and Sabrina Ionescu didn't sign, and stars like Caitlin Clark and AJ Wilson stayed away. These absences aren't coincidences. They reveal Unrivaled's financial ceiling. Even with investment money, the league can't compete with the guaranteed exposure, endorsement opportunities, and long-term stability that the WNBA offers. Step 3. Ratings and engagement. Year 2 hasn't been kind. The first games drew barely a few thousand viewers, empty VIP sections are everywhere, and social engagement is modest at best. The league's struggle to sell out 800-seat venues shows that the hype isn't translating to sustained fan interest. Without serious viewership, the WNBA isn't likely to jump in and save the league, no matter how open Bazell claims he is to partnerships. Step 4. Public statements and pressure. Napheesa Collier's commentary is bold. She's calling out the WNBA leadership and asserting the necessity of fair player compensation. At the same time, Unrivaled is publicly hinting at collaboration with the WNBA. The irony is thick. They're acting desperate while still trying to position themselves as a rival. This is classic startup maneuvering. Hype the independence, but signal willingness to merge when reality hits. Step 5. Timing and deadlines. The January 9th CBA deadline looms large. Unrivaled may hope to leverage Collier's statements as pressure on the league. But WNBA owners and executives aren't easily swayed. If anything, this tight timeline magnifies the tension. Player empowerment versus league sustainability is now front and center. In short, this isn't just a story about a small league trying to make it. It's a high-stakes chess match, and everyone, from players to executives to fans, is watching every move. Unrivaled's ambition is clear, but reality may have already set the limits. Now here's where things get truly explosive. The contradictions between Unrivaled's messaging and reality are impossible to ignore. On one hand, they're publicly claiming innovation, sustainability, and player-first leadership. On the other hand, the numbers tell a different story. Empty seats, modest TV ratings, and a league that's entirely dependent on investor money. It's a classic case of style over substance, and it's unraveling in real time. Take Napheesa Collier's statements. She's openly critiquing WNBA leadership, insisting that players deserve fair compensation and that the league needs people in leadership who understand sustainable business models. Bold? Absolutely. But the irony is sharp. Collier is making these statements while representing a league that is, at this moment, financially fragile and unproven. Unrivaled has less than a fraction of the WNBA's operating costs, yet its leaders are now looking to the very league they once positioned themselves against for rescue or collaboration. Then there's the public narrative from Alex Bazell. He insists Unrivaled is open to partnerships with the WNBA and that nothing is off the table. But here's the tension. If Unrivaled's 3-on-3 model truly threatens the WNBA, why would the league step in now to save a rival? The reality is that Unrivaled hasn't birthed its own stars. Every marquee player is already a WNBA talent. Without the WNBA's ecosystem, exposure, and credibility, Unrivaled is essentially a developmental league in disguise. Let's also talk about timing. The WNBA's CBA negotiations are heating up, with a January 9th deadline looming. Collier's statements can be interpreted as pressure tactics, but there's a fine line between advocacy and overreach. Investors and players alike are watching closely. Is Unrivaled genuinely demonstrating a sustainable model? Or is it using bold rhetoric to gain leverage while scrambling to stay afloat? And the fan angle adds another layer. Viewership for marquee games is down, VIP seats are empty, and social media engagement hasn't caught fire. The market is sending a clear signal. While Unrivaled offers an alternative, it hasn't yet proven it can draw consistent attention, sponsorship, or long-term revenue. Meanwhile, the WNBA remains the standard-bearer, highlighting the gap between perception and reality. This escalating contradiction between Unrivaled's hype, Collier's bold advocacy, and the actual operational numbers is what makes this story so captivating. Its ambition clashing with reality. And every move now carries consequences for players, investors, and the league itself. Now let's get granular, because the drama isn't just surface level. It's rooted in numbers, structure, and player dynamics. First, the financial mechanics. Unrivaled is operating on a tiny fraction of what a single WNBA team spends annually. To put it in perspective, one WNBA team's salary cap can exceed $12 million, not including overhead for facilities, marketing, travel, and staff. Unrivaled? They're working with a few $100,000 per player, a single venue, and minimal staff. The scale is completely different, which makes Napheesa Collier's claims about understanding sustainable business models bold, but also, some might argue, overconfident. Next, ticketing and viewership paint a sharp picture. Opening day attendance hovered around 800 fans, with courtside tickets priced similarly to high-demand WNBA seats, but left mostly unsold. VIP sections sat empty. Streaming numbers peaked at 2,500 international viewers outside the US, and domestic audiences? Tiny. That's a far cry from the WNBA, where even smaller market games draw thousands live and reach millions across national broadcasts. Unrivaled may be a platform for players to stay in the States, but it's far from a sustainable, scalable model. Now let's consider the players. Unrivaled has recruited some top-tier talent: Collier herself, Alyssa Thomas, and Jewel Lloyd. But it doesn't own its stars. Every marquee player is a WNBA talent first. Look at Angel Reese and Sabrina Ionescu. Both opted out, signaling the league's financial ceiling and limitations. Even Paige Becker's hype isn't translating into mass viewership. Essentially, the league depends on WNBA-developed stars to exist. Without that pipeline, it's a concept in search of substance. Finally, the personal stakes. Napheesa Collier's dual role is fascinating. She's a star player, a public advocate for fair pay, and a representative of a fledgling league trying to assert credibility. Her statements carry weight, both for the WNBA's CBA negotiations and for Unrivaled's public perception. But they also highlight a stark tension. She's calling for leadership accountability in a multi-billion-dollar league while representing a league that, by comparison, is running on a shoestring and investor goodwill. In short, the deep dive reveals a landscape filled with contradictions. Ambition clashing with reality, player empowerment versus league structure, and hype versus hard numbers. Every comment, every move, every public statement is magnified, and the fallout, financial, reputational, and strategic, has only just begun. This isn't just about Unrivaled or Napheesa Collier. It's about the future of women's professional basketball. What happens here ripples across the WNBA, player leverage, and even fan expectations. At its core, this story exposes a fundamental tension: legacy versus innovation, stability versus ambition. Unrivaled is pushing boundaries with a new format, a new schedule, and promises of player-first pay. The WNBA, meanwhile, represents decades of building a sustainable league that balances profitability with visibility. Collier's outspoken advocacy puts a spotlight on player empowerment. She's saying what many players feel: if the WNBA can't ensure fair pay and proper leadership, someone needs to step up. That message isn't just about money, it's about respect, recognition, and the long-term growth of the sport. For younger players, Collier's statements serve as a reminder: your voice matters, and pushing for accountability is part of shaping the future of the game. For the WNBA, the Unrivaled situation is a double-edged sword. On one hand, the league sees a potential competitor, or at least, a league trying to carve out the same talent pool. On the other hand, Unrivaled struggles reinforce why the WNBA's infrastructure, history, and credibility matter. The WNBA doesn't just survive because of talent. It survives because of careful planning, media deals, sponsorships, and fan trust. Unrivaled, by contrast, is a cautionary tale of hype without scale. Culturally, this saga is significant. It shows how new leagues can challenge the status quo, forcing the WNBA to reckon with questions it may have ignored for years. Are players compensated fairly? Is leadership accountable? Can the league continue to grow while respecting the athletes who built it? Even if Unrivaled fails, the pressure it creates has already shifted the conversation, and players now have a visible platform to demand more. And let's not ignore the fans. The market is already signaling where it stands. WNBA stars bring attention and credibility. Empty seats and low ratings in Unrivaled's first games show that fan loyalty isn't guaranteed. For viewers, this clash between leagues highlights the fragility of hype versus the reliability of established excellence. In the end, the broader impact is clear. This isn't just a minor skirmish in women's basketball. It's a pivotal moment. How players, leagues, and fans navigate this tension could reshape the entire ecosystem of professional women's sports. So, where does all of this leave us? Unrivaled is teetering on the edge, publicly reaching out to the WNBA while its own operations show cracks that can't be ignored. Napheesa Collier continues to speak truth to power, demanding leadership accountability and fair compensation. And the WNBA? It's standing firm, navigating CBA negotiations and balancing its legacy with the pressures of innovation and competition. This is more than a story about a single league. It's a microcosm of the growing pains in women's professional basketball. The contradictions are stark. Unrivaled wants to present itself as a game changer, yet it depends entirely on the stars, infrastructure, and credibility of the WNBA. Collier's bold statements are empowering for players, but they also underline a key reality. Ambition without scale, strategy, and sustainability can only go so far. Meanwhile, WNBA executives are likely watching carefully, knowing that any misstep could either empower new competition or reinforce their dominance. For fans, this is a front-row seat to basketball politics at its rawest. Every empty seat, every low rating, every player decision sends a message about where attention and loyalty lie. And for the players themselves, it's a reminder of the power they hold, not just on the court, but in shaping the structure of the leagues they play in. Collier's advocacy highlights an essential truth. The sport is bigger than any single league, and players' voices are now central to its growth. The Unrivaled saga also exposes the fragility of hype. A flashy start, bold statements, and star appearances can generate attention. But without long-term planning and sustainable business models, even the most hyped leagues can falter. The WNBA's stability, by contrast, comes from decades of calculated growth, media deals, and global recognition. Unrivaled may bring innovation, but it also brings cautionary lessons for anyone hoping to build a league from scratch. So what's next? The January 9th CBA deadline looms large, and the outcomes here could redefine salaries, leadership, and player power across the WNBA. Unrivaled may survive through collaboration, or it may fold under the pressure of reality. Either way, the story is a defining moment in women's basketball, a clash of ambition, vision, and consequence that fans, players, and executives alike are watching closely. At the end of the day, one thing is certain: the landscape of professional women's basketball is changing, and the players at the center of these decisions are proving that their voices and their demands cannot be ignored. If you want to stay on top of the WNBA, the players, and the leagues that are reshaping the game, make sure you're subscribed to Her Hoops. Hit the bell, drop a comment, share your thoughts, because this story is just heating up, and we'll be breaking it down every step of the way.